I now call House Bill 101 for its first hearing. With us today are Representatives Byrd and Schmidt to provide sponsor testimony. Welcome to the committee. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman John, Vice Chair Dean, Ranking Member Brennan, and members of the State and Local Government Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to give sponsor testimony on House Bill 101. In November of 2019, the Village of Amelia in Claremont County voted to dissolve. Due to the ambiguity in Ohio Revised Code on how to dissolve a village, this led to a 2 to 3 year legal fight that involved the county court, the auditor of state, 2 different townships, the outgoing village leadership, the incoming village leadership, and countywide offices. Some of the issues around winding down the affairs of this village still remain to this day, 4 years later. It became clear to my joint sponsor, Representative Schmidt, and myself that Ohio Revised Code needed to change in order to bring clarity in how to dissolve a village. We worked on this bill last General Assembly, but we were not able to untwist all of the issues in a satisfactory enough manner to bring a bill forward. But we did not give up, and we're coming to you today with a bill that we feel good about. House Bill 101 does the following to accomplish the task of how to dissolve a village. It clarifies that village officials cease to hold office upon certification of the vote. It clarifies that all ordinances and resolutions cease except for any necessary tax levies. It establishes a transition supervisory board, which is a public body, and that board is comprised of the county auditor, the county prosecutor, and the county recorder. This board shall appoint a receiver trustee from a list of individuals provided by the Auditor of State. This board resolves all debts and liabilities of the former village. This board approves any necessary operations for the residents of the former village. This board will resolve all legal claims. This board administers any necessary taxes to pay the liabilities of the former village. This board will wind down the involvement of the former village in any community improvement corporation, any special improvement district, or any tax increment financing arrangement. This board will dispose of any real or personal property. This board will manage utility services until such services have been transferred to a township. This board shall turn to the former village fiscal officer and the former legal counsel for consultation, and this board shall cease to exist upon final audit approval by the Auditor of State. I would like to work with committee members and the chair to consider amendments including the issue of possibility of limiting how often petitioners may attempt to dissolve a village, and at this point turn to my joint sponsor, Representative Schmidt.
Thank you so much, and Representative Byrd, you answered all the questions. Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Ranking Member. I'm here today to echo my colleagues' sentiments. This is an important piece of legislation to help clarify the process of village dissolution. Representative Byrd didn't even talk about all of the problems that occurred in Amelia and the few problems that occurred in Newtonsville. This bill does not change the process for voters to decide on village dissolution, but rather this bill puts a better process into place to dissolve the village over a period of time and ensure that there is a proper accounting and transfer of its assets and debt. Representative Byrd and I are not strangers to this. Claremont County has seen 2 villages dissolve, Amelia and Newtonsville. There may be another village dissolution issue on the ballot in May in Ohio Township and the village of Moscow. These processes were not easygoing, and there was difficulty in finalizing the dissolution. It is our hope that we can avoid these issues by clarifying the process for the villagers, the townships, and the counties that may be involved. As Representative Byrd said, it creates a transition advisory board to oversee the transfer of assets and help settle any outstanding issues or questions the village may face. This includes the transfer of property and assets, finalizing any business and ensuring the village utility services are functioning before it is handed over, among other things. We are not here to say whether a village should or should not exist. We're just here to make it easier transition once the dissolution has occurred. And I'd like to add that we are looking at the possibility of discussing how many times you can go to the ballot with this, because one of the things that happens with a dissolution when it goes on the ballot is some of the issues of responsibility, maintenance, money are disrupted. And so it can really take a small village and put it into financial straits once it goes on the ballot. So that's the sticky point. That's why it's not in here now, but it may show up later. So be willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. So do we have any questions for the representatives?
Madam Chair.
Ranking Member Brennan.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. Who votes on the dissolution of a village?
Just the village.
The villagers.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So if they vote to dissolve the village, then they become part of the township?
Through the chair, how do we answer this, Adam?
Well, Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes. Chair and Representative Brennan, it depends on the location. And typically, in many villages, a village is located within a township. But the village of Amelia that she and I are very closely familiar with, this village was located between two townships. And so half of the village went to one township, half of the village went to the other township. So then you have the issue of dividing up the real property, dividing up the personal property, dividing up the responsibilities, dividing up things like salt removal, lighting districts, all kinds of maintenance issues. The road, the state highway that goes right down the middle of this village that is now separating the two townships. Who's going to control the street lights? Who's going to control the traffic? Who's going to control law enforcement? So a lot of different issues here in the village that we're talking about.
And through the chair, to add to that, the village of Amelia was interested because the former mayor was defeated at the polls as the dissolution was voted on. And so it became a fight as to which mayor was going to be in charge of the dissolution from that perspective. This clarifies that by saying the former mayor is going to be the one that has the voice and that's in charge. But as Representative Byrd alluded to, there are still things going on in Amelia that have not been resolved. There's some property that has been gone into bankruptcy, and while Pierce Township would like to do something with that land, because of a bond that they got from a governmental entity of $2 million, the property isn't worth that, so they can't sell it. So they have this albatross just sitting there that can't be torn down, sold, that could be productive. So it's sometimes like a divorce. We hope that it's easy, but in this case it was a, can we use the term nightmare?
It was definitely a legal hassle for several years.
Madam Chair, quick follow-up.
Yes, follow up.
Thank you for that. So I know I'm pretty sure that when two school districts want to combine, for instance, it takes a vote of both of the constituencies of both school districts. So shouldn't the folks of the township have a say in whether or not they're going to take on, for instance, the liability of a dissolved village?
Chair and Representative Brennan, that is not the case in Ohio Revised Code. Only the villagers get a vote. Township residents do not get to vote. And clarify something that was said earlier, in this particular bill, neither the outgoing nor the incoming mayor get a say. They are removed. They're not a part of it. It is only this transition board that will be making decisions.
So, Madam Chair, final question, I think. So let's say there is some major liability. Who takes on that debt? Would it be the township now?
If I could answer that question. Representative John and Representative Brennan, if there are liabilities that have been incurred by that village, the village residents will continue to pay through tax, property tax, income tax, whatever the case might be. And this transition board has the authority to continue to tax the residents of that former village until such liability has been paid off.
Thank you.
Through the chair, to add to that, because the townships didn't incur the debt, they don't have the statutory authority to take that debt on.
Right. Thank you.
Representative Creech.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representatives. I've heard of this possibly happening, but have never seen it happen. I guess my curiosity is, what if, typically a council has all the information and feels like they're going to make the best decision? What happens if what if the best interest is to dissolve, but the community doesn't feel like it should? I mean, typically a council is going to know more than normal resident, but what if the residents are against the dissolving of the...
Through the chair, it's a petition process, so the person that wants the dissolution has to get so many signatures on the ballot from registered voters in that village, and then it's up to the villagers to decide whether that's a good idea or not, regardless of how productive the village council might be. The village council might be very productive and doing a great job, but if a petitioner gets enough signatures and it goes on the ballot, those villagers might disagree. Sometimes the argument is you won't have an earnings tax, which sometimes a village will have because they have the legislative authority to do that. So villagers buy into that, not realizing that they're now going to be responsible for the debt that the village has incurred that will no longer be being paid for by the village.
Any further questions? Representative Vice Chair Dean.
Through the chair and to the representatives, how is the advisory board chosen?
This bill would clarify that the advisory board is comprised of the county recorder, the county prosecutor, and the county auditor. That group would then name a receiver trustee from a list supplied by the Auditor of State. The Auditor of State would have a list of 4, 5, 6 names of individuals that would suffice and would have the background, the education, the skill to accomplish this, and that transition board would then name one of those from that list to be the receiver trustee that would handle these, and then the board would give final approval.
As a follow-up to Vice Chair Dean's question, I think you mentioned the village of Amelia sat on a township line. What if I have 2 villages that sit on county lines? In that case, would the county electeds from both counties sit on the transition team?
The bill does not address that, and so perhaps we'll need to have further conversation about that scenario.
Follow-up, Chair, may I ask a question to you? There's no, it's just a county, there's no townships in that, where that village is, where it spills out to? It's just county land, not a township attached to the county land?
No, there are townships in both counties, but I believe the resolution specifically says that the transition team is the county auditor, county recorder, and county prosecutor. In the case of the village that sits on a county line, which happens in my county, you would involve 2 county prosecutors, 2 county recorders, 2 county auditors. And so we have another situation where we're trying to resolve an issue for this particular village, and we've had to bring in the county elected officials from both sides of the village, which sits on a county line. So it might be something to consider, what that
I
would
think
look
we'll
like.
agree.
Well,
An amendment.
yeah, that's, Chair John, the bill does not address that issue, and I think that we're going to have to work with you in order to clarify this bill. Perhaps there'll be an amendment needed for this situation like that.
Yes, great. Are there any other questions for the bill sponsors? Ranking Member Brennan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Do you anticipate any opposition?
Any bill that Representative Schmidt and I work on together does not usually get opposed.
Good answer.
Yes, we've done our homework. We've been working on this bill for 3 years.
Good, good. Thank you.
Well, seeing no further questions, this concludes the first hearing of House Bill 101.